Greetings and salutations, Bravehearts, Urbanites, and Coach Mad Hatters, and welcome to the wondrous time of the year that is truly at the brink of the new year, the spring equinox, the beginning of spring break, the season of Aries, the celebration of King Mars, Queen Mars. As a Capricorn sun, Virgo moon, Virgo rising, I have a thing for Aries. And it's a quite complex and sacred infusion for the powers of Mars and the archetypal characteristics of Aries. So much so, uh, because of my Chiron placement being in Aries. So, all that surrounds my aspects of my wounded healer has a lot to do with Chiron being in the first house, which is, where's my notebook? So get the details surrounding my birth chart. My Chiron being in Aries has everything to do with my star power, my self-awareness, all sorts of challenging assignments, my self-development, my personal growth. So with that said, we are about to venture into the world of story. I'm going to speak about a few narratives that I consider North Star. North Star meaning that which is attracted to your inner sight, your intrapersonal realms, your mind's eye, that which only you see, and then challenged to put expression to it so that it may be shared and somehow used as the tools for one's metaphorical wounded healer. Because if you think of the term wounded healer without putting any type of metaphysical or mystical, magical infusion to it, then it really is an oxymoron until you get into the depths of what it means. And everyone's components, everyone's wounded healing components are different. And honestly, they are all situated according to your birth chart placements. So I welcome you to this session. We're going to throw out the rundown. We're just going to talk some things through. I have the cards at the ready. I have charged both decks, which is the Wild Unknown Tarot by Kim Cran, as well as the Angels and Ancestors Oracle cards and guidebook by Kyle Gray. So welcome. I am your host, Skyla Indigo Inc., and I would suggest that you buckle up and spend some time. Let's just hang out for a little while. The narratives, I was going to say the narrations and then the narratives, and then it got all tongue tied, but there's this thing called omni narration, where the story is told as if it was the all seeing eye of the situation. for me exclusively, over the last couple of weeks, I have been dealing with some very intense energies. And at the beginning, I couldn't explain. I wasn't sure uh, what was truly going on. And because I'm grown, and this is not programming or broadcasting or coach platforming for any children, this is all adult talk. I will preface by saying that this is all adult talk. With that said, the theme, the silver lining of this conversation is going to be based in the exact conjunction of Black Moon Lilith being in Aries, which she will remain until the end of October this year. She entered into Aries late January of this year. So she will be there the majority of 2020. The last time she was in Aries was in 2011. My Black Moon Lilith is in Libra, and so that, what I am discovering about me is that I do not have an outlandish, unruly, sensual essence to me, but when it arises, I can't ignore it. And if anyone knows anything about the backdrop to Lilith's, to especially the Black Moon aspect of Lilith, mythological bound, then you know that she was one that refused to be anchored down by the aspects of male dominance as to what it is she would do with her sexuality. She was not the outlandish whore that the male narrative likes to paint her in, but it was of divine femininity and liberation. It's her femininity, it's her sexuality, it's her sensuality that she has full reign and sovereignty over. And she may pick and choose how she smoosh. That is not to be dictated. And when it is, she turns into this angry, outlandish energy that is often depicted as hateful or evil. But as I often say, especially as an architect of narrative, that we must always, moving forward, tap into who it is that's telling the story. The victor is not going to be the only one telling the story, just as well as the victim is not going to be the only one telling the story. In our infusions and restructuring of critical analysis, we are finding the balance. We are understanding that we are absorbing the narrative as it suits, uniquely suits. And so, Chiron, as well as any aspect of Lilith, well, whether it be Black Moon or otherwise, is often speaking to us to face off with our truest self, regardless of judgment or outside chitter chatter, that we are to begin embracing that which only can be embraced by self. We are being challenged to accept all aspects of ourselves regardless of societal conditioning. And much of that self-discovery has gone astray because we are forever trying to please that which is outside of us and ignore all that dwells on the inside. We are hyper sensitive around sexual encounters to the point where we're falling feverishly into the abyss of allowing others to dictate how we enjoy or don't enjoy. In my honest opinion, it is not society's duty to referee anyone's sexual barometers, sensual barometers. It ought not be a trend topic of what goes on in people's intimate realms, romantic or otherwise. And so often I find myself tapping out of conversations with those that want to keep the rumor mill going or keep high frequencies of chitter chatter about someone else's bedroom, but never want to talk about theirs. I'll tune in if you and I are talking about our frequency. If I'm talking about mine and you're talking about yours, then that's an equally yoked and balanced conversation within those realms. But I have absolutely no patience to engage in conversation where the topic is of one that isn't present. Because how is, I'm going to try my best not to get off course because I am dancing on the fringes of a rat. I feel it. I feel it. I feel it. I feel it. So, with all of that said, let's dive in. There are three narratives that will be put in highlight during this conversation. They are all by an author that I have relatively recently bumped into. And the author's name is Nalini Singh. And I want to say that the majority style and theme that captures the magic in these books, these stories, is the intersection between mystical, magical, dark forces, psychological thrillers, er- erotic romance. Yeah, but see, it's a high quality of erotica romance. It has captured me like nothing I have ever encountered ever. And I am an avid book reader. I am a seeker of story. And as a pastime, I dig into story for lesson. I go looking for myself inside of story when I partake in story. I'm looking for myself and I'm looking for my lessons. Fantasy, especially erotic fantasy, seems to have this enormous pull on me since Black Lilith returned into Aries, but more heavily in the last 3 weeks. And it's interesting too because my dearest friend, Prime, he's an Aries. And when I say he's Alpha Aries. And the thoughts of him have been flooding my psyche to the point where I was becoming agitated. And we've been knowing each other over 7 years. And it has been pretty much a respectful rhythm in our acquaintance. But for some reason, and it's interesting because I couldn't figure it out. It's like, what is going on? All sorts of creative, tantalizing agony. And I call it agony because we are not in, what can I say? Um, we are not in physical communion. So for the type of energy that was endorsing certain thoughts that were coming up, and without giving too much, because like my imaginal realms, they are very intimate spaces for me. Um, and I've said in several other recordings that if it wasn't for my being thrust into my imagination as a kid for a variety of reasons, I really don't think I'd be here today. I was able to find refuge in my ability to go within. I hid from danger as a result of finding safe spaces within my imagination realm, which were all built around my accumulation and acquaintance of story. So I do not exaggerate when I say story saves my life on a multitude of levels. And so my imagination is not short of anything. But I also know that had I not grown up in such broken territory, that more than likely the my components of Virgo that demands that certain things in my life be to a perfection, it will probably be more of an outwardly energy rearing activity than an inward one. So most often people um, will point out their trauma or tragedy and have such a hard time finding the saving grace within those situations and circumstances. And so I say, even though the catalytic thrust that had me go within and had me stay there as refuge was quite gnarly, the special effects and the benefactors of such efforts is nothing that I would trade. There isn't anything in this realm I'd trade my imagination for. And that goes along the lines of it being the safe haven for my curiosity and my enormous appetite to sift and curate. So, Nalini Singh has these three stories. One is called Silver Silence. The other one is called, and I have it up right at the moment. The other one is called The Archangel S Shadows. And the audiobooks that I am referencing is on YouTube. I'm wondering, maybe I'll put the links in the show notes, but I'm not sure. Um, and then there's another one, and The King of the Abyss. Yeah, I think I may. Now listen, let me say this real quick before we go any further. If you are an uptight, if you are if you are inhibited in your sexual stance in any kind of way, if erotic stories make you feel some kind of way to the point where you are embarrassed or you can't deal with it, don't tap on these links, all right? Because one thing that I know is that folk have the tendency to judge harshly that which they don't understand or are scared of. And so if you are not free enough with your sexuality to be able to tap into it and know that it's more than just porn and writing, then you will miss the magical glory that resides within these storylines. Here's something else that I want to disclose real quick because back in the day, and back in the day for me, at this particular moment, 2004, 5, 6, 7, I was heavily into the author Zane. And I'm going to say this, and it's not in critic to her work, but I use her because she's the only Afrocentric erotic author that captured me long enough to read um, mo- uh, multiple pieces of her work. But I'm finding out that the erotica that is nurtured and secure within the fantasy realm, meaning the love that takes place in the fairy realm, the romances that take place amongst the changelings, or those that have a psychological thrill to it, seems to grab at me better. It's almost as if inside the fantasy world I'm actually getting something that I have been wishing for. Hang on a second, I'm trying to situate my headset. Something that I have been asking for a while. Okay, so um, there was a time in life, in my younger, well, not really younger. I want to say like at the brink of my 30s, I was contemplating, well, mid 30s, going into my mid 30s. Going into my mid 30s, I was actually contemplating becoming a director of porn movies. It took me a while to even be able to say that without any shame, just because those that I hang around are so uptight, and for the sake of me not wanting to be judged. But now I'm walking in a different kind of freedom. And still, to this day, many of them still do not even agree with my existence, and they get it all wrong all the time. I'm just becoming to be okay with that. Because one thing that I'm realizing is that the more and more I give them consideration, I take away my consideration of myself, who I am, and what's actually brewing on the inside of my individual unique caliber. My fingerprints prove to me that there is no other one like me. Now, there may be a lot of common lines, there may be a lot of familiar ley lines where I may find familiarity in another human, but I am like no other. And so are you. And it's up to each of us to find our one's ID, intrapersonal ID, and protect that and nurture that, endorse that, preserve that, enlighten that, multiply it, divide it, critique it, ensure it. And so I tapped out of that pursuit because I got so agitated with porn movies being so fucking corny. It was like, why is this shit so corny like this? And wondering who wrote the blueprint on production. It's like, this shit is corny. And it's just like, okay, so all of these, like, big screen romances that don't show any of the actual uh, scenes of lovemaking, I used to always wish, like, why can't we combine the two? Why can't we have a really good story, like a narrative that sucks you in, and it's a lot of character building to the point where you become emotionally invested in those that are involved in the story, in addition to really good lovemaking, genuinely good lovemaking. Not all it is. The only time you can relate to it is if it's aggressive and animalistic and everybody getting thrown up against the wall. It's like, come on, don't nobody aggressively kiss like that and ripping off clothes. Like, that shit is just so lame to me. And then over on the side of porn, it's like, okay, this is either sex or animalistic fucking. Like, neither one of these aspects apply either in the everyday worlds of those that honestly love each other. They were always missing the soft side of romance. It was hardly ever depicted together. Nalini Singh has captured my wishes as they come true through the audios. And I have to say, the omni narrators that have been chosen to bring voice to these stories have done exceptionally well with allowing the senses to be danced with slowly. It's not like scene one, everybody's fucking. No, they are actually legitimate stories that could stand alone without the love scenes, but they bring the human touch to it. Because come on, I mean, on a decent basis, especially if you're in love, there's a lot of love making going on. There's a lot of romance going on. There's a lot of sensual gestures and authentic transparency going on. Being exposed to these kinds of storylines not only brings a wondrous quality to the lovemaking aspect of the story, but it also shows the flaws that the changelings or the humans or them interacting with each other may bring. It also vets and validates those that are true with one another, that stand before each other, flaws and all, and the power of acceptance that permeates through these storylines are impeccable. Why? Because even though it is a fantasy storyline, it is not absent of the realization that we are out here and we hurt. We come to each other broken, and that through these supernatural unions, folks are made whole. These storylines give me a totally different definition to the term power couple. And because they are based in the fantasy realm, the fairy realm, the supernatural realms, it's not that day to day hustle and bustle where everybody's drained from their 9 to 5. And so this whole, where the masculinity is heightened and the femininity is subservient. It ain't none of that shit. It is this equal respect and reciprocity and the power of love that comes out of that. And the men show up broken and the women show up broken, and they are not shamed for all of the wretchedness in the world that has come up against them and broken their spirits. And even though, they go through the tussle within circumstances where they try to hide this, or they don't readily display this or disclose this, or, it takes a while for the story to unfold where they come face to face and say, I need you to know this. And the story does very well with those moments of vulnerability where it's like, okay, I've told you this about me. Are you going to accept it or not? Or one of the more major situations, specifically inside the storyline called Silver Silence, it is about those that have very heightened telepathic capacities, as well as the changelings of bears and wolves. And changelings, if you're not into like the fantastical worlds, changelings are those that change into animals. So, like in the Dungeons and Dragons series, um, like I love Drisdor, and he's not a changeling though; he's a dark elf. But he has this 6 foot panther called Guinevere. And so I've taken that panther, and inside my mind is where she dwells as a changeling, meaning that she has the capacity to be in human form, which is me, how I show up, or in panther form, which is the avatar that is attached to me inside of my imaginal realms. Within these types of stories, it's the capacity inside the physical realm. And and it's a will to power where you can shift. Shapeshifters. There we go. Okay. So inside the storyline, the uh, lady main character is the high quality telepathic, and her beau ends up being uh, uh, an alpha bear. He's a changeling, but he can change into a bear. Big, stalky bear. So in his human form, he's over 6 feet. In her human form, she's barely 5'5". And so just imagine just the difference in height in those romantic terms, and how it transpires. And let me say this because I could be getting a little ahead of myself. How it transpires in the story is that these two breeds do not usually intermingle. So, according to their societal conditionings, they don't usually pair up as couples. And so they have to deal with that. And then they have to deal with an enormous component of the story, which I have identified with her being highly telepathic. She is not an emotional creature because it's all mind space. So she pretty much has zero emotional element, which strikes me a little weird because she is the main feminine character in the storyline. But what's interesting is that on the flip side of that, he is. He is family, because he's a bear, okay? So understand the uh, characteristics of bears and how interconnected they are. They are they are what I like to call ultra social. Like they sleep entwined with each other. They are very, very close knit breed of animal. So you have this non emotional female and this ultra emotional male. And even in those roles, even in their oddity, love still found a way. And it took him a while. It took him a while to soften her up, but she softened up. Now, him being this ultra emotional bear does not mean it took away from his bear gruffness, because he did not play around. Like, he would rip your fucking head off. But he had this softness for her that brought me to tears in certain sections of the story, because I tried not to allow the energy that I was already tussling with to run away with me. Because what his tender support gave her after she worked through all of her insecurities branded her into a force to be reckoned with. Now, she was still in her own right, because understand, she's an elite telepath, so she had skills like inside of her own community. She still was considered elite, but their co-joining of powers, and when I say that, I mean he did not withhold his affection. He allowed her to know, I got a thing for you, and I really don't give a fuck what you do. You could be as mean as you like. There is something about you that has a pull on me, and until I explore that, you're going to continue to see me show up. Yeah, I'm going to be popping up. There's nothing you can say to me that will make me go away. And because she did not behold the emotions that would be stroking egos, it was delightful to see how he never took offense to it. He never took offense to it. It was amazing. It was amazing. And so, as the story continued to unfold and eventually come to a close, come to find out she had been loving him all along and just didn't know what to do with it. She just had not had any prior experience with that level or quality of acquaintance, that she handled it very sloppily in the beginning. But because he was not easily swayed, or, that whole poke the bear, and let me just say, the storyline was also funny. And it's hard to make me laugh. I know I giggle on my own. Yeah, I crack myself up. I know how to laugh on my own. But when it's somebody else trying to make me laugh, yes, it has to be genuinely funny in order for me to laugh, because I'll just look at you and I don't feel no kind of way about it. So the story was honestly funny as well. And so, like, she poked at his bear, and she wasn't really doing it on purpose, but it still happened. And he was very patient with her. He was very understanding with her kind. He was into knowing her outside of her, meaning he did not allow the chitter chatter to persuade him, or talk him out of the interest that he had for her. And because he was a bear, he astutely stood to challenge any news that would come his way that would try to jab at the love that he held for her. He upheld her honor. He fought in her name. He made sure that others know, you fuck with her, you fuck with me. And it was just delightful. It was so, let me say this, it soothed the chaotic nonsense. And I say that with, no malice. There was a whole bunch of nonsense that was going on inside of my head and heart at the onset of all of this energy that I was now being responsible to contend with. And until I started like digging into, like, doing the research to try to figure this out, did it hit me. Check and see what kind of energies is going on in the astral realm, to see if this may have something to do with the way that you're feeling. Because every morning, all through lunch and in the evening, I'm like, as long as I've known Prime, I have not been fluttered with this kind of, it's like, what the fuck is going on? What's going on for real? I've known him a long enough time that if that was going to be the case, like if I was going to have these, this avalanche of this schoolgirl crush, like would it had not come a long time ago? Like, what is this? And I found out, like, so it's not just with my Capricorn sun, it's not just that Aries is in Capricorn, because I mean not Aries, but Mars. It's not just that Mars went into Capricorn on February 16th, which was right around the time where the onslaught started. But it was also because of my Black Moon Lilith being in the mix. And that's the frisky part of me. And I have to own up to it. And like I say, it's not always present and it's not always heightened. Because I've been abstinent for a while. And I know that's a bit personal, but I just have to bring context into the conversation to say that I have had a wonderful hold on my discipline, mainly because it's just crazy out here. It's a jungle out there. And I'm just not in tune to uh, deal with all of that. So me sustaining from that with another human. Let me just throw that in there for clarity. Um, was good for me. It was good for me because I am a highly unique creature, and so my central uh, requirements are they are finely tuned and in conjunction with my mental spaces. So I can't just romp around for the sake of romping around. I don't do casual sex. Yeah, I'm a very in tuned lover. So you have to capture like the like you have to strum the pain with your fingers metaphorically. Like you really do have to. Yeah, I'm a guitar. Yeah, check out India Re and Santana's. Oh my gosh, now I really want to tell you what it is. Hold on, I have to tell you the name of this song because it's popping up, just so that we can keep the frequency authentic, right? So, India Re, um, and Santana. While my guitar gently weeps, honey. Let me tell you. Talk about a conversation for your soul. So if I had to choose a song that would mimic what it is or that could support what it is that I'm saying to you, that is the one. And so it takes coordination. You can't just walk up on me and ask for my number. I'm just weird like that. It's just a very weird. So I don't do the casual meet you at the bar, take you home type stuff. I'm just not into that type of stuff. I am a hopeless romantic, and the power couple frequency is something that has been part of my fundamentals for a very, very long time. And so I'm finding that I'm being pulled into storylines that show me leading examples of those that not just, and let me slow down for a moment. Most often in our highly socialized culture, we be believing, or folks that look like me be believing, that power couples are just those that work together, or those that can get along, have the ability to get along in a house. When we are in the fantasy world or inside the fantastical world, there's a different kind of powering to these couples. These couples actually fight alongside each other. I'm talking about archers and those that yield blades, and like they fight evil. They go on these magical quests to save the fucking world. So yeah, it's totally different from a a real estate couple. And I don't say that to throw no shade. It's just different. It's a different type of powering for these couples. They are in the same rooms. They are sitting around the same tables, having the same weighty conversations. And inside of those conversations, they yield power as a unit. They, so it's more of a Justice League coupling than it is this regular business bound coupling. Now, that's not to say, because I think I've said it in another recording, like teaching duos, like power couples that teach together or coach together or speak together, or like in musical bands or artists, or those types of couples. Oh, baby. So I think because I'm more of a right brain type of girl, that it would not strike odd for me to put on pedestals the couples that dwell within the artistic realm. Like I like Sunshine and her husband. She sings, she's on the keys, he's on the guitar or wherever else in the band he wants to linger. Man, that melts my heart. That melts my heart. Beyonce and Jay-Z, when they on stage together, that melts my heart. India Ari and music when they were, that melts my heart. India Ari and her video with David Banner, that melts my heart, because it seems like they tap into the realms that are beyond the social space. They tap into those magical realms that you can't necessarily put words to. Like they have communication with their eyes, with their smiles, with their frowns, with their body language. So it's beyond words. Anything that can transcend words takes my attention. And so to have these romances unfold inside magical realms, I felt like I needed to come and chit chat about, to give honor to the presence of my Black Lilith, my Black Moon Lilith, being in Aries, while Aries is now in Capricorn. And somehow it's connected. Somehow the evolution of this highly intimate learning is connected to the enrichment of my wounded healer. Because I have severe wounds around my star power, my personal evolutions. And I know that strikes people in a peculiar type of way, uh, because I do speak the way that I speak, and I have this Saturnine streak that is stern and matter of factly, but I'm still human with all my tender parts. And that's what I have to say when I stand inside of certain conversations where I try my best to show up authentically, to say that in order to really know me, one must research the warrior in the garden concept. Because I was not raised inside of the nurturing factor. I am honestly a product of my environment, which was mostly hostile, that literally took me by the neck at 6 years old. So the warrior in me seemed like it was called to duty way before it needed to be. And so that kicked in Saturn's protective notion that my inner child had to be protected at all costs under certain circumstances. And so, yes, the warrior in me shows up first. But there is a tender side of me. And it's not to dismiss to say that I have my feminine sovereignty intact. But I am also a true believer in the ultimate strength of yin and yang. And that when the two quintessential components are in correct flow with one another, that releases, that unlocks a portal of unmatched power that can't be duplicated, that it's only specific to the two entities that have been magically entwined. So to be intertwined in that essence, I can't unlock from at that essence and think I'm going to recoup it or 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 mimic it with another. Sometimes we fail to realize that romance is very unique. It's a highly customized experience. No one lover is the same. Doesn't fit the same. Doesn't. Yeah, it just doesn't. So I think I'm going to end it here. Um, and like I said, I just wanted to unload a little bit and give my um, my take. And I'm glad that I did, because not only am I speaking to you, but I'm also speaking to the essence that is considered my black moon, Lilith, as well as my Chiron and Aries, and all of the planets that are in Capricorn right now. Pluto is in Capricorn, Saturn is in Capricorn, Jupiter is in Capricorn, and Mars just arrived a couple weeks ago in Capricorn. And honestly, I think the presence and Black Moon Lilith is in conjunction with Aries, and I think, especially at the brink of Aries season Lord have mercy. Like, so there's a lot going on. It's a very complex complement to what's going on, what's brewing under the essence of me. And I needed to unleash, I needed to unload, um, and just share a little bit, just to give some critical analysis as well as paying honor to those components of me that society would be at the ready to give shame, like try to dish out shame, which keeps us, if you really think about it, or let me just say, in my honest and personal opinion, when I really think about it, it tends to um, explain why, even though we are striving to new heights, that we are still somehow striving incomplete. Um, but I believe in successive wisdom, which means that today has to happen in order for tomorrow's wisdom to be unlocked, and that it's a accumulative process, and that you can't hop, skip, and jump. You have to connect your dots and pay attention to your 6 degrees of closeness and how one thing spills into another, and that those nutrients of the spilling of that is just as imperative um, as the spillings that are yet to come. So, um, yeah, check out the audiobooks if you feel compelled to do so. And until next time, and I was going to pull cards, but I think I'm just going to let it ride. And yeah, because it's going on an hour now. And I wonder, so let's see, we are going to, yeah, we're going to click it off at the 55 mark. So that gives me just enough time to let you know that I have um, a transcript. The transcript, the official transcript for our Shiro's journey is now at the ready, and it is a complimentary learning course. So all you have to do is just get in contact with me and sign up, and I will shoot it out to you. Or let me think. I may put the link in the show notes, and you can just go ahead on, and the entire scheduling learning outline is available and ready. And yeah, so with that notion, I will wish you well, and thanks for hanging with me.